Hello, acolytes, degenerates, druids, and droomies. Neckwrecker, Rex, and Franny back at you again, and here we are, episode 4, and it feels like it's been in the blink of an eye. Today's show is special, young droomies, as we're going to be serving you smoldering live reviews, hot album takes to guide your listening journey, and in our main topic du jour, we got a real simmering bloodbath that's been brewing for some time. I'm talking the type of dispute that makes the Hatfields and McCoys seem fucking wholesome. The Druids are pontificating about what happens when metal genres collide on the field of battle. So lace up your boots, sharpen axes, and make ready your steel. Throw on some gauntlets with spikes longer than Johnny Holmes in our first annual, semi-annual, maybe never again annual, Genre Deathmatch. Droomies, welcome to the Rift Bowl Ice Smash Invitational. Storm Ruler, hit it! Oh boy, here we are, episode 4. Franny, how the hell are ya?
Oh, baby. After that intro, I'm doing real good, man. I'm feeling real fucking good, tell you what.
Well, it's a beautiful fall day. I've been looking forward to recording this episode for some time. I'm looking out at the sun as it waxes and wanes on these last warm days here up in the Minnesota North. And it's a beautiful day to be talking about heavy metal.
Damn right. I tell you what. I don't have a beautiful view like you. I am downstairs in the man cave where it's dusky. Musky. There we go. Musky and doomy.
An appropriate place for a keeper of the must to make shack. Yeah. Well, I know that you've had opportunity to see some shows recently, but nothing immediately the pipeline. I, however, do have a few show reviews that I've been waiting to talk to you about, waiting to talk to our acolytes about. So, if you're okay, I think I'll launch right into talking about some shows.
Absolutely, man. Take it away.
Let me just give a callback here and just immediately mention, we talked about concert survival in our last episode, and I had an epiphany in this last show, and I feel like wearing earplugs into the bathroom at some of these venues is important. Franny, have you ever been in the bathroom and just heard someone wiping their ass and think to yourself, have I been doing it wrong my whole life?
Oh my God.
I was in this school. Last week I'm at this show. I know. I did not think I'd be opening up about butt wiping techniques for this episode, but I was in that. I walked into the bathroom. Guy walks into the show. Walks into the bathroom. This guy sounded like he's wiping his ass so aggressively. I swear he's trying to grind like a pine cone into a raisin.
Oh my God.
And like,
Jesus. Fuck.
I hate to paint with such a visual brush, but I couldn't understand how the TP was able to withstand the battering that he was giving it. And it was scrape. Anyway, I'm sitting there trying to piss. I couldn't help but think about sharing knowledge with you all, and one of them, concert survival. Maybe consider keeping those earplugs in when you go in the bathroom.
Oh man, that's a real good tip, and luckily I just keep them in unless I go outside. But boy howdy, am I glad that I keep them in when going in the bathroom, because if I had to withstand that kind of sensory barrage from hearing that, I probably would want to just break my eardrums and get it over with, and just make me go full deaf after that.
I didn't think an ass wiping like eardrop would cause me to have an existential crisis as a 38-year-old in a bathroom, but I'm sitting there, I'm hearing this person go so aggressively at it. I'm like, have I been too casual with my ass wipes? Like, am I doing it wrong? Is this why I'm going through more ass wipe than I want to? Well, what show was I at? Let's move on to why I was really there. I was seeing what I would call one of the more important heavy metal acts going in 2022, Zeal Ardor. Now, this show, I want to open by just telling all of our droomies and painting a picture, was absolutely sold out. Packed front to back. You couldn't shove another person in there if you wanted to. And here's kind of a bummer. A lot of folks were trying to find a ticket outside the venue and just couldn't. In fact, I had friends who were not able to get into this show. I certainly respected Zeal Ardor coming into this, and I knew that they would be a draw, but I never knew that they would pack this venue so quickly and so ferociously. So, first thing, Franny, you got to know, sold out show. Zeal Ardor are fronted by Manuel Gagnou, and he's an interesting dude. He's of Swiss and African American descent. So his dad is from Switzerland, and his mom, she's a Black American woman, and they got together, had a baby. Here's Manuel. Maybe it's Manuel. Hopefully I'm getting that right. I want to open by kind of just describing their sound for you, and it's such an interesting juxtaposition. It's black metal meets like African American spiritual songs, or what you might even call like work songs that were sung during the time of slavery. So you might not, this is not your average band. Like, there's not a lot of bands out there experimenting with American roots music and black metal, let alone songs that will be described as like work songs or black spiritual songs. Something really unique.
Jeez, I'm gonna have to check that out because it sounds really good.
It's something different.
Yeah,
absolutely. There's not a lot of bands that mix any sort of like American roots music with heavy metal in general. Like, I mean, I know that there are folk American sort of bands that maybe have like Appalachia influences, or what we think of as folk music from like the 60s, but nothing that goes this far back like Zeal Ardor do. And these songs, they feel powerful and they have weight. They're meaningful. This dude sings his heart out. Unfortunately, one thing that was kind of a bummer with this show, which still phenomenal, he's got a couple backup singers or other musicians that I should have got their names, but they were out due to the old bug. And so he was singing by himself and they had backing tracks. And so that detracted a little bit from what was, otherwise just a fantastic set of his. Have you had a chance to check out Zeal Ardor previously? No.
You, up until like the day of the show, I had no idea who you were going to see. So I was like, no clue. And then you told me about him, and I was planning on checking him out, and I haven't gotten to yet. But I did see some of those videos that you sent towards me and posted on our socials.
Checking out the Instagram, which if you're not doing that yet, you need to.
A little bit of a social plug, Druids of Doom podcast on Instagram and Twitter. But I did see the video that you posted there, and it looked really fucking good, and it sounded really good. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
I'll just repeat myself again, but this is an important band. I think that there are other more eloquent people that would be able to speak about the nuance of what he's doing and the musics that he's combining. People better suited than me. I'll just say that he feels really important right now in 2022, really relevant. I was really just really happy to see what a strong turnout this guy was able to get. And on another positive note, just to keep the good love coven flowing, is they played at the Turf Club in St. Paul, which, compared to some other venues that we've discussed, the Turf Club is just a fantastic place to see a show. It's one of the, it's, what do they have? Their slogan is something like the St. Paul's best 1940s gem. Like, this place, it's an old Art Deco haunt. And it's cool because if you're able, you can go down into the basement between sets, and they've got a beautiful wooden bar down there. They know how to pour a Guinness. You can get some food. But most importantly, we're always talking, we're taking care of your body. Concert Survival 101. You can go downstairs and sit your old, decrepit, busted, crustaceous ass down. I got to do that, man. I'm not just one of these go hard standing for the whole show like a schmuck. I got to go sit.
Yeah.
So
you gotta rest the weary bones a little bit.
One of these days, we're going to have to do like I'm just looking ahead to the future, Franny, and we're going to have to do like a Twin Cities, like top 10 music venues. And,
that's a good idea. I know exactly what's going to be the fucking bottom of the list, too.
Yeah, just going to get beat out by an alley full of stray cats and needles. Like, I'd rather see a show there.
I was about to say, I'd rather see a show in a fucking busted-ass alley with needles and stray cats and a hobo pissing on a light post or something. I would rather see a show there than the place that you all know what we're talking about at this point. I'd
rather see a show in a boiler room tied to a radiator, getting lashed by like some dude who just lost his pension and has a propensity to get too boozed up. I'd do that ahead of going to that. The venue which shall not be named.
Yeah, exactly.
At this point, you're 3 episodes in, everyone knows who the fuck we're... Anyway, so Zeal Ardor, fantastic. A band I won't miss. I'll never miss them when they come through again, if it's anything I can do. So they also, well, who'd they bring? So they definitely were extremely well received by the crowd. You could tell a lot of people were there to see them, but they also brought along, oh, this band is so unique. I can safely say I've never seen someone like them before. I don't know if I ever will again. Imperial Triumphant. Imperial Triumphant, formed by Zachary Ilya Ezrin, hailing from New York, is like, how do I even describe this band? Well, this is going to sound like a dig, and it's not. But they are almost so formless that they feel almost anti-music. It's atonal and dissonant, and it's avant-garde as fuck all. To put maybe a more objective spin on things, it sounds like jazzy black metal. Songs really can go any place. There are no limits. Things can get groovy and funky just when you're not expecting it, and extremely abrasive the next. This is not a verse, chorus band. So you really feel like you're seeing something entirely not metal or almost borderline not human. And I've said all this, and you may be thinking, well, that doesn't sound like a lot of fun. And I'd tell you right now, you're fucking dead wrong. I was dead wrong going into this because I really wasn't familiar with them. I guess before I wax any further, have you heard Imperial Triumphant? Have you had a chance to hear them since I probably texted you at the show?
Yeah, I think I've checked out like one or two of their songs that were on like, you know, like the metal playlist that like Spotify and Apple make and stuff like that. I think one or two of their songs have came across it, but like I haven't done a deep dive on them. I haven't like really explored any of their music like heavily at all, just you know, with the exception of like one or two songs maybe.
Well, I will just say I'm looking forward to when you are in the mood to go through some sort of Lovecraftian transformation where you go into an experience lucid, pretty reasonable, rational, and able to deduct with common logic what you need to do in order to live as a human. I want to see you go into an experience from that state of mind and slowly lose your sanity. And that's what listening to these guys is like. You have this idea of what a metal band or a musician is going or even should sound like. And by the end of the set with Imperial Triumphant, that's going to be so turned up on its head, you won't even know what exactly you heard. You'll just know it was unlike anything you've seen before. Part of this is their aesthetic and presentation. So these guys come out fully sort of like clad in long tunics or just not like everyday streetwear. And they also have these masks that they hide their visage with. So you have no idea what these guys look like. And these masks sort of look like stoic brass statues, almost like the Statue of Liberty. And that's intentional. These guys, they sing, they perform songs that are meant to capture the essence of New York City. It's like sights, it's sounds. I had to read up on these boys because I was so enamored. And yeah, they're basically just trying to provide an experience that will give you a segue into New York City, good, bad, and the ugly. And in terms of understanding how to perform, and this is where they really just get a feather in their cap from old Neckwrecker over here, is they let a set build. Like, they started kind of slow, and everyone was getting, like, looking around a little bit, like, what are we hearing? But every song, they slowly started to build more and more momentum. And you know, you talk about how to finish a set, how to close out strong. They took an elbow off of the top rope when they came out, and I can't believe I'm saying this, they came out with a bottle of champagne and were playing the guitar with the champagne.
What the fuck, dude?
It was crazy. They popped the champagne. There's booze flying all over the first two rows. People are coming up like they're receiving a sacred communion and getting booze poured down their greasy gullets. And I'm in the back like, what the hell is happening? You talk about druidic music. You talk about music that feels like it's tribal or providing a ritual or connecting you to something. Imperial Triumphant did that. I don't even know what else I could say. I truly lament. Classic fucking dumbass troglodyte guy over here. I'm trying to shoot a video of this moment like it was so rad, of this champagne shower, and it's hitting everybody. And I'm recording. I got the most epic metal video I've maybe ever shot, and I go to look at it, and I realized I never hit record.
Death grill.
You know?
Oh, man.
Crestfallen as I was, after having witnessed that, it actually made it feel more special. Like, perhaps that wasn't meant to be filmed. Perhaps these beings were able to transmute some sort of power into my phone and shut that bitch down and say, no, you young druid, you are not meant to record this. You, sir, are an oral tradition. Share this story with all who come through your path. And so,
Oh man,
I will just close by saying I will never, ever miss this band if they come through. And if you listen to them, stream their music, and you think to yourself afterwards, like, that doesn't seem like that would be fun, I assure you, young Droomy, you would be wise to go find out for yourself because they're unlike anyone else. So, Franny, if that's not a fucking ringing endorsement, I don't know what is.
Yeah, like you said, if that wasn't a ringing endorsement, there's no such thing. I will be listening to these guys on the way to work tonight, and then whilst also at work, because that sounded fucking incredible. I know you said we were talking a little bit the day following the show, and you were saying like how crazy it was and how much of a good time you were having, and I was like, oh fuck, just another classic Franny miss out of me not being able to go to a show. But man, oh man, I wish fucking A.
I would put ahead of the club that shall not be named would be seeing a show, in the inside of a rusted old rail car, and that would be pretty sick. We bring the metal to you, and so Imperial Triumphant, they got their fucking name right. 100% went out on a triumphant note. Cream of the crop. Can't wait to see him again. Zeal Ardor, phenomenal. This tour, by the way, is. I saw a recent update on their social media. It's like selling out fairly consistently, so word's getting around. This is a tour you need to see if you're able to. So I know that by the time this publishes, it'll probably be close to the back half of that tour. So hopefully, this is a serious case. Fear of missing out, yeah, it's a real thing. And I guess I'll then move on to my final show update for all of you droomies and acolytes out there. But Perturbator. You know what? I really need to get a better grounding set of assumptions because I don't even know if I'm saying their name right. Perturbator all these years. It could be like Perturbator. I don't really know, but I certainly wouldn't want to be caught perturbating in a bathroom. I know that. I'd be careful in a theater if I wouldn't sit next to Pee-wee. Perturbating to a back. Pee-wee got a raw deal. I don't give a shit. He got a raw deal. Excellent content creator, Pee-wee. Hey, look, you can't make an argument. And the man, he was a fitness guru. He's riding around on his bike everywhere.
Oh,
He's been promoting rights for bicyclists for years. Perturbator's the band I was seeing. And this is a callback to the artist I missed. And I fucked up. Carpenter Brute. Synthwave. John Carpenter-esque inspired music. Well, Perturbator, 100% in the same vein. Hypnotic, dark, synthwave. That's what you need to know. Driving melodies. Again, I'll always describe this pretty much the same way to folks, but you just feel like you're playing like a retro racing game and a city skyline is slowly coming up over the horizon as dusk sets in. That's Perturbator. And a very dynamic and youthful crowd. I'm fairly certain hallucinogens were going around that crowd in heavy doses based on people's utter lack of syncopation with the beat, but moving a lot. I don't think exactly. For those of you who can't see this, which is all of you, Franny's just moving his body like he's having a grand mal. And that's how you're like a wet noodly Oh, yeah, there you go. Wacky, inflatable, arm-flailing balloon man thing going on over here. So this was that sort of crowd. A lot of people that were probably EDM adjacent. And I think that's cool. Like, I like it when I can brush up against other music scenes just by going to something that's sort of heavy still. Maybe not heavy metal, but heavy. This was a full package in terms of presentation. Excellent lighting that really kind of took the music to another level. And I don't know how lighting can necessarily feel retro, but this felt like being in Tron. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, I just love Perturbator. It's definitely somebody different. If you get a chance, definitely do it. And Perturbator toured with Health. Health, this is where I'm going to, for the sake of the podcast and keeping us rolling along to this death match, I'm just going to keep this short and say Health, they kind of mix industrial with new wave and synth and noise rock. It's a lot going on. And it was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around these guys at first. But much like Imperial Triumphant, they over time began to gain a certain momentum. Their music started to take on its own like inertia, and by the end of it, they had steadily won me over. They had a strong contingent of their own friends already. One thing that was kind of strange is I don't know if the lead singer has some sort of technology that he uses, but his voice. We were kind of at a great distance because we were at that point blown out and sitting our old fucking asses down. But from a distance, having no experience with Health, having never even really seen them, the lead singer really sounded like Billie Eilish or like a youthful woman, and it's straight up like somebody who I would assume would identify as a man, like well-built dude from a distance, and so like these vocals were really dynamic. I mean, I wouldn't expect someone to be able to hit those notes like this dude was hitting, and it sounded just really convincing. So, Health is a challenging band. You really don't know what they're going to give you from song to song. But what I really liked about them, I'm a sucker for new wave and synth. And they had a lot of strong 80s to their sound. And I mean that in the nicest way I can.
I'm a big sucker for 80s music in general. So if you're saying that kind of fits into that or falls into that groove, I'm definitely going to have to have a listen to them because that's 80s music is right up my tailpipe.
Well, 80s music in general, like what a dynamic decade for music. So many different things going on. Of course, it happens to coincide with the rise of what we love most of all. But the 80s punk rock, I mean, hardcore, new wave, dark wave, even pop music was a little bit daring at the time. I don't know. I think so. So I love 80s in general. But with all that being said, that's my little concert roundup. And more shows to come. Young Droogies, I've got Hellfire on the Eclipse. We've got Bewitcher coming up. You can expect a full review of Blood Incantation, Immortuous. You actually, by the time you've heard this episode, we'll probably be releasing that. So just stay tuned. Stay buckled up. Stay safe when listening to the Druids of Doom because we're always bringing the heat to you, baby.
You got that right. I just really wish I could go to more of these concerts because there's so many of them, and it always seems like at the end of the year they always come hot and fast, and I just never ever have enough time or the ability to get off of work. Third shift life, what up? Just don't have the time to get unless it falls on a weekend. It's pretty hard for me to catch these shows. So
the fucking rat race, man. And you know what sucks is there's been a lot of these shows where your energy and presence is like needed on my own interpersonal level. Like I can feel myself getting blown out too early, not practicing good, like management of energy. And that's where you would kick in. The Franny factor would kick in and sense a lull in my energy and just bring that youthful exuberance and drive me right back to at least an 8. So I've been missing that, and I look forward to a show with you soon. I know that, I mean, this is still a couple months away, but we've got the massive death metal tour of a lifetime. I know we've got Sabaton coming up. So there are some shows where we're going to get the full effect of the Druids.
Absolutely.
But until then, I'll just be lamenting your loss and thinking about you. So I think, Franny, that's enough bullshitting. We got to get down to brass tacks.
Got to hit that nitty gritty.
The nitty-gritty of the Rift Bowl Ice Smash Invitational, baby. These eyes are jellied and softened and ready to be gouged. So, let's just, if you're okay, Franny, I think we should just break down for the listeners before we move into this. Let's just do some basic understanding of what the Rift Bowl Ice Smash Invitational is. So, I'll just start by saying first thing you need to know, folks, this is a tournament-style bracket. These genres, these death metal, heavy metal subgenres are all their own team. They are their own fighting force. And we're going to be pitting them in winner takes all. We take your children and burn your village, sort of. Everything's on the line stakes here in this death match. So, Franny, I don't know, did you ever watch the Final Four or March Madness, I guess is the correct moniker. This is what we're going for.
Yep, absolutely. Not a fan of the old basketball, but I know the setup. More well versed to like the Frozen 4 type deal.
Oh, Frozen 4, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. This is a winner take all situation, and like you alluded to, this is each subgenre is going to have their own fighting faction, their own army per se, and they're all going to have their own strengths, their weaknesses. We're going to break down their tactics, like what they're bringing into the battle.
And the whole point, why are we doing this, you might be asking? Why? Why would you make speed metal fight folk metal? These are all our brothers and sisters. Well, first of all, this is fucking heavy metal. And if you've gone down the rabbit hole to the point of listening to an ongoingly better produced, small time metal show, then you are deep in the lore. You are deep in the weeds, and you know that we are a bickering people. Heavy metal fans are like any subculture, and even though we love each other, we have a tendency to pick some nits with each other's taste, with what's better. Some of these arguments, they can run deep. It's like dipping pizza into ranch. It splits families. And I'll just say, I'm a convert. I'd fucking never... tell me you're making a podcast from Minnesota without telling, well, I dip fucking pizza in ranch. Not good pizza, okay? Not Neapolitan. No.
No.
If I have a rot gut Little Caesars, I got no shame. I'll dip that bitch.
Yeah, or like a little frozen Totino's or whatever. You at that point you need the ranch to like rehydrate the cardboard crust that you're eating.
Totino's are this side of like a Big Mac, it might be the cheapest but most delicious goddamn thing. I don't understand. It's like nothing about that thing has got any real ingredient.
It's all processed and engineered to taste good.
Yeah, it's got that. I like to buy the Totino's with extra MSG. Like I want you to put I want double MSG in my Totino's. I want to really feel it. I want my Totino's to come with a futon so that after I eat it, I have someplace I could go lay my fat ass down for about 3.8 hours. So anyway, the point is arguments run deep when you're talking heavy metal.
Absolutely,
but let's take this. We're blowing this bitch out to a grander scale. The tournament-style deathmatch. This isn't about, and here's a grounding principle, folks. This isn't about what genre as a music is the best genre. This is about who would murder, death, kill the best. All right? So what we're going to be doing, Franny and the Wreck are going to be talking about is what does each fighting force bring to the table? What are their strengths and weaknesses? So, for example, how will lack of punctuality affect stoner metal? Or what would a disruption in the Bagel Bite supply line do to the legions of death metal fighting forces? These are the questions the Druids must answer today. So, Macho Man would have something to say about who would take this. Franny, what would you say Macho Man would say?
I believe he'd say something like, "We're gonna find out who is the cream that rises to the top." Yeah.
Franny, that's fucking right. Calling the fat from the lard, eating our curds in the way. Who's the cream at the top? That's what we're here to find out today in the Rift Bowl I Smash Invitational. So, let's maybe just do a little basic logistics here. Let's talk about seeding. How the fuck did we seed these genres? Well, let's first talk about our two divisions. We've got the Ozzy Osbourne division, the Double O's. These guys are hardened. Double O division, baby. Ozzy Osbourne division. And in Division 2, we got the Ronnie James Dio division. So, within the Double O's, we got Ozzy Osbourne division, we got black metal, we got prog metal, folk metal, and doom. And within the RJD division, we got thrash, power metal, death metal, and oh, look what the cat just drug in. We got hair metal in the fucking game, folks. They snuck in, they backed their way into the playoffs. We are all surprised to see them here, but every tournament needs a Villanova, and that is your squad.
Was not expecting to see them in the seedings, but, here we are. Somehow, those fragile, frail little bastards snuck their way in.
Scrappy little bastards, I'd say. I mean, hair metal, you talk about, we didn't expect them to have a seed. I will say there's no genre of heavy metal that's planted more seeds than hair metal, baby. There's every reason to believe they'd have a seed.
That do be facts, though.
That do be facts, baby. Girls. You know what I'm saying? So So let's start off
boy.
with just talking about the seeding here. In the the double O division, we got as a 1 seed. No one's really surprised. Black Metal. Now, why are they a number 1 seed? Well, their forces are quasi-religious about their cause. They are willing to die for what they believe in. So for that alone, they get a 1 seed. Coming in at number 2, Prog Metal. Now, we're gonna pontificate about why these decisions were made later, but just know that on the surface, they are technically and tactically the strongest of all the legions. So there's no, we'll get into why there are 2, but rounding out the bottom half, looking to make an upset, looking to make a name for themselves in the 3 pole position, we've got Folk Metal. Just overall, they're relying too much on myths and legends to do the heavy lifting, so we're still respecting them, but they're a 3. And then 4, and it pains me to say, but seeded due to their utter lack of motivation, is Doom Metal. Heavy as a black hole, never on time. So, Franny, I took our listeners through Division 1. Why don't you talk about the seeding for Division 2, baby, and lead off with, this is going to be a cooker.
All right. So in Division 2, and it's Division 2, but you can't put it at second fiddle. The Ronnie James Dio division, the RJD division, number 1 seed is the clear number 1 seed in this one is thrash metal. I mean, what can you say about thrash metal? They've been conducting advanced geopolitical warfare for decades. And not only that, but I feel like they are just one of the most recognizable sounds in metal. So it's hard to not place these guys at the number 1 seed.
Well, and with so many bands singing about nuclear fallout and politics, it makes sense to me that we would place them as a number 1 seed.
Especially right now. And at number 2, this was a tough one, but number 2 is going to be power metal. And I mean, really, what can you say? They have dragons, so there's that. They got fucking dragons. Let's call it out.
They got dragons. There. I mean, what else could you possibly need to know? I mean, that alone propels you to a high place on the seating. If thrash is number 1 because P sells, but who's buying? Power metal's number 2 because they're riding on fucking ancient reptile beasts ready to Dracarys your ass in the ash and bone and dust. Hell yeah, dude. And oh boy, this next one, death metal. This next one, death. Franny, oh boy.
Number 3. First off, I'm surprised that death metal was not number 1 or number 2. But coming in at the number 3 seed is death metal. Complete shock, other than the fact that hair metal got into the seedings in the first place.
At all.
Yeah, I mean, incredibly disgusting enthusiasm for violence. They have a panache for describing like utter bloody chaos.
I feel like that's why they are a number 3, though. That if they're disturbingly enthused with the horrors of war, it puts them at a weakness. They're so obsessed with it that they actually are weakened by it.
That's fair. That is fair.
You can't go around just sucking jellied eyes out of skull holes and expect to win a fight.
You get fair point.
You can't just do that. You have to. I mean, that's why prog metal is a number 2. They're technically and tactically sound, whereas death metal, Knuckle Dragon Denny's line cooks out for vengeance and blood.
All right, and then to round out the bottom of the bottom of the roster here, number 4, said it before, hair metal. How the hell this happened, we don't know, but they somehow pulled it off. And like I said, they're meek and fragile, but I say that in comparison to the other genres. Like I said, when you're going up against, like you said, Knuckle Dragon, Denny's line cooks, and then pit them up against a hair metal guy in a leotard, you don't want to bring a leotard to a gunfight. Like that's just not sound. That's not a sound decision to make.
Fuck no.
And personally, one that I would not do.
David Lee Roth's got some kicks.
Yeah, yes, he does. And we'll get into that. We'll get into that once we do the breakdown.
We'll get into it, baby. Well, I think I feel good about these seedings, but that being said, hair metal backing in, you never know what could happen. They've got a chip chair and a chance. Doom metal, I still believe in them, even if they're 4 seeds. So, Franny, I think all that's left to be decided now is to actually put these opponents in the battlefield, break down what their strengths and weaknesses are head to head, because this is all about the matchups, and see who comes out on top. That's an edit.
I'm keeping that shit in.
So let's just jump over to the Aussie Oz Double O division. And I think we should just start off with the most cracking matchup that we have in this first round. And for me, I'll show my my bias. I call this the top matchup because I love black metal. But let's get to know these folks a little bit better. So in one corner, Druids, we have a mercilessly cold church-burning faction. They hail from frostbitten castles surrounded by spooky forests. They need no introduction, but for those of you young initiates that don't know, it's the black metal horde. And in the other corner, we have purveyors of dread and creeping despair, hailing from ancient covens, caves, and perhaps even wizard orders. The only thing longer than their bongs are their beards. We've got doom metal, baby. So that's the tail of the tape. We got black metal's a 1 seed, doom metal a 4. So clearly black metal is favored. Let's talk about some weaknesses of black metal just to open. I'll throw this out there without using the I word. I'll say these guys and gals are generally sexless. They are starved for attention from anybody. They're adverse to the sun. And you'll see this when talking to Black Metal Legion, but they are preoccupied with being cult, to the point that when you match them up across the battlefield with doom metal, this could be a negative consequence. They might be a little bit too self-aware to focus on the task at hand. So black metal, they've got some very obvious points of, they've got some chinks in their armor that you could exploit. Isolated, they don't got an affinity for laying outside in the nice sun. But on the other hand, I mean, you got doom metal, excessively slow moving fighting force. I mean, this is not a fast moving fighting force, and they're prone.
Oh, no.
I mean, these guys, they're more likely to eat edibles and forget they're in a fight than to show up for the fight. So I've got real concerns about whether or not doom metal is going to prepare for this matchup.
I would agree with that. And not only if they do show up, if they remember because they had something important to do, like, survive a death match, they would probably be so inebriated from either edibles or some of that devil's lettuce that they're probably gonna have a slowed down effect. Like it almost would be like in slow motion. But you never know. That could help them out in the long run.
That worked pretty fucking well for Neo.
Exactly.
I'll just say,
exactly.
You just got me thinking about this matchup in a whole new way.
That's what I'm saying.
If they're able to slow shit down, I mean, that all of a sudden brings this 1 to a 4 matchup closer to a 2 to a 3. So maybe it's a good time to talk a little bit about fighting style. I see the Black Metal Legion as a guerrilla warfare style army. This is violence designed to instill fear. I'm talking car bombs, arsons, and stabbings. This isn't a highly technical force. Whereas doom metal, they're feeling the waves, baby. They're just going to send wave after wave of forces at you, slow moving, enveloping you, filling you with low vibrations, man. And by the end of it, they want to infect you with their own lack of motivation. By the end of it, you should be a drooling, lobotomized, utterly pathetic collection of cells barely held together by the edges. So I think when I think about this, to me, this is a matchup nightmare for doom metal when I get down
Absolutely.
to it, because the bottom line is even if they can blow thick plumes of milk-bone white smoke at the enemy, the whole thing is black metal. They're filled with borderline religious zealots.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, these guys are committed to the bit. I think more than any of these fighting forces, black metal has an almost kamikaze-like devotion.
Absolutely.
But let's talk intangibles here. Doom metal. I mean, if I think of doom metal, I instantly am thinking about some sick-ass conversion vans with like some airbrush art on the side.
Hell
and
yeah.
Think, so Franny, how do these if they got these conversion vans, knowing that they may be slow as a fighting force, but they got these sweet vans to get supplies moving quickly to the relatively slow, how does that impact things? Does that play a factor in this matchup?
Oh boy, I don't think it's a real factor. They'll be able to get from from point A to point B a little bit faster, but in the end, I still think that black metal and their kamikaze cult of church burners is still going to completely overwhelm them with their anti religious vigor that they have and carry with them into battle. I just honestly, and like you said, with their fighting style, car bombs. What do the doom metal guys drive?
Oh my gosh.
Car bombs.
This is a matchup nightmare. This is a matchup nightmare right from the start. I would suggest to the doom metal legion, put that white flag up early in this battle. Pack your vape. Get the fuck out of there and get back to those slow chugging riffs, bruh. Because black metal are not here to fuck around, okay? You stepped into the wrong ancient Nordic church because that bitch is about to get burned.
You fucked around and found out. I just put it that way.
Oh, man, I hate that. I think, I'll say this. So I think we're both in agreement. Black metal's coming out on top in this initial deathmatch matchup. And I'll say that if doom metal, if they could have gotten a favorable setting, if they could have taken on the black metal legion, say, in some sand dunes or some oak groves or during a funeral procession, I think that I don't think they come out on top, but I think this looks a little more competitive in that sort of environment. But bottom line, black metal's a 1 seed for a reason. They're coming out on top, maybe a little bit slightly, fogged out. They took some of those hits to the head, but they're still hitting their drums and their blast beats, and they're still summoning ravens. And yeah, I've got black metal coming out on top.
100%. When we came up with these matchups, I was looking at it and I was just like, there is no fucking chance for doom metal, not one bit. They might be able to get some, blows in there. They might, one of their kick-ass conversion van drivers might plow through one or two of their the black metal legion. But other than that, there's no chance. There's no surviving this.
And I know that this is a death match, so you have certain grounding assumptions, and one of them would be that all of these fighting forces are there to try to come out on top. And I really question, having watched their practices, having watched their skirmishes, they just don't look like they're really invested. They don't look like they're all there. I can barely see through the fog of war, which ain't fog, people. So, black metal coming on top. Let's talk about the other side of the double O division. We got a 2 seed that, folks, you better pay attention now, because prog metal, they got a little chip on their shoulder from being ranked number 2 in the old Rift Bowl Eye Smash Invitational. But on the other side, we got folk metal as a number 3. So the Rift Bowl is all about the matchups. I'm going to keep saying that. The seeding determines a lot. I don't think this is necessarily a matchup nightmare, but in looking at both of these genres, prog metal, they are just looking strong as hell. I would just start, I guess, by mentioning weaknesses. Kind of let's go through the negatives. Prog metal, I mean, these are really cerebral fighters. I mean, they are prone to analysis paralysis. They overthink shit. They're up in their own head. The Kirk Cousins effect. And on top of that, I know that's triggering for our Minnesota listeners.
Oh, God.
That's fucking triggering, boys. So they're thinking too much. But strengths, I mean, an absolute embarrassment of cognitive riches. I mean, this is like, Pulp Fiction. Check out the big brain on Brad type of shit. These guys can think their way out of most situations. And for that reason, they're bringing a fighting style. And this is what makes them a 2 in the Druids' minds. But they are deeply invested in science and psyops. They're all about, influencing the enemy motives, influencing their emotions, objective reason, their whole goal. And this is what makes them so slippery, is to infiltrate, to fragment, paralyze, disorganize, and isolate the opponent. They want to infiltrate a culture, to turn it on itself. So, I mean, when you talk about strengths, yeah, they might overthink some shit, but they're going to get inside your psyche.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, these guys are the psyop masterminds of the metal scene, just because of how heady and technical that they can make their music. They do get in their own heads, which is, like you said, it is a weakness. They might get too caught up with what they're doing to realize what the hell is actually going on out on the field of battle. But they, like you said, that they are in it to sow dissent and make the enemies do the work for them.
When I think about the weapons these boys would use, I'm thinking things like deep agents, spies. I'm thinking drones. And what's terrifying as the Druids sat down to figure out these matchups and how they would play out, but thinking about how prog metal would utilize the enemy's own mind as their most effective weapon. I mean, these are lessons that you have to take to hard folk metal, and we're not just saying you're going to get wiped out. We know that well, maybe we should talk a little bit about some of what folk metals bring into the equation. I think the trickiest thing about folk metal is, as a fighting force, they got a lot of nuance. They've got a really broad pool of warriors to pull upon, whether that's Vikings or ancient Celts or mythical creatures. I mean,
yeah, it feels like they have, throughout folk metal, you have almost different subgenres within the subgenre. Like you said, you have Viking, you have Celtic, you have, Slavic, Islamic folk metal. Like, you have all of these mini factions that you can draw upon, which could be a good thing, but at the same time, some of those mini factions might not want to necessarily like mesh and jive with each other, which could be a hindrance.
I mean, orcs and fairies have been, to call back to the intro here, they've been Hatfields and McCoys forever. And so when you've got this loosely tattered coalition of Vikings, orcs, cave trolls, berserkers, I mean, on paper, it all looks formidable, but in practice, it's a lot to kind of bring together and synergize. So for that reason, I do see them as the inferior opponent. And on top of that, prog metal, they've got something up their sleeve. I mean, every one of these fighting forces has like an ace in the hole, an ultima special. And prog metal, I sat down with Franny. We're thinking, who was their ultimate? I'm about to die. I can still turn the tides of this battle, sort of X Factor. And we came to the conclusion, Doogie Howser from the Starship Troopers. He's the ultimate prog metal brainiac. The ultimate infiltrate the enemy, get behind their lines, break down their will to fight sort of villain. And when you add the old NPH, Neil Patrick Harris, to any equation, it's a dynamic shift.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You can't, there's almost an intangible when it comes to that. If NPH is in the conversation, you never know. You just never know. You really don't.
The thing, though, that I do find myself coming back to, prog metal, they have all of these advanced mind techniques, these psyops. How well does that work on a mythic force? How well does that work on, I don't know, say an orc? If you're an orc and you've spent your whole world underground and it's just one purpose in life to crush the elves, is your mind going to be easily broken? I think that, to me, is what we have to find out here. How effective is prog metal at infiltrating these, this dysphoria of there's a great biodiversity in folk metal. How do you infiltrate all of them, or how do you weaken them enough, and can they?
And that's a good question, because when you bring that up, I feel like bring up the example of orcs or even like berserkers or whatever. They're not necessarily a smart bunch, so they might be a lot harder to influence, especially since they're always seeing red. Like in the example of orcs versus trolls, they don't like them. They want to kill them. They always want to crush them. So they might be so blindsided by that one singular purpose that no matter what prog metal can do, there's no influencing it. That, and they're dumber than a box of fucking rocks. So that doesn't help out either.
You know, and even I really hate when like Hollywood will portray like Norse culture or the Norse pantheon or Vikings as like, to whittle them down just as like barbarians, because it's just a small subset of broader Norse culture that's rich. I mean, these guys were artisans. They traveled to Baghdad and, you know, the vanguard for Byzantine kings. But when you talk about folk metal, we're not necessarily singing about the great bolt builders or the great bead traders. We're talking about the guys who are clubbing you, who are, you know, separating you from life and limb.
Absolutely.
And so I do kind of think that they're probably going to not necessarily be the most cerebral force themselves, even if they have great intuition, even if they're very in touch with their ancestors, even if they have a respect for nature. They're going to be pitted up against a force who is bringing a level of technicality that I don't think that they could even begin to fathom. So I don't know where you're falling, Franny. Personally, I have prog metal coming out on top in this battle.
I would agree with that. I think prog metal takes it, but I think it's a lot closer than black metal versus doom metal. I really do. Just because. Yeah, that was just a total shit house. But I think prog metal versus folk metal, I think it's a closer match just because, like we said, there's a huge contingent, an amalgamation of forces within folk metal where, prog metal might be able to influence, a couple of other, some of the people within folk metal, but it's not going to be able to influence everyone. And it will, those people that don't get influenced or easily tricked will be so blindsided by the force of folk metal that they will sustain heavy losses. I think prog metal comes out on top, but I think I think through overwhelming brute force of folk metal, I think that it is closer.
Okay, well, then we got black metal, and just to catch us all up to speed in the double O division, black metal coming out on top, prog metal coming on top. Let's head over to the RJD division, Ronnie J. D division. In our, oh boy, the one we've all been, this is the matchup people circled their calendars for. You got old fogies setting up their lawn chairs 2 days in advance just to get a good spot to watch these bastards go at it. A number one seed, thrash metal, probably from the Bay Area, probably completely coked up. Masters of speed. Are they the masters of puppets? We'll find out. Versus a number 4, they got a lot of volume, and I'm not just talking about how they sound. They got a lot of spots, but they're not Dalmatians. I'm talking hair metal, baby. And they're coming. They got a lot of women in tow. All right, that's another thing you need to know. So a 1 versus a 4. We saw how that played out in the double O division. Is this the sort of matchup that could breed an upset? I don't know. Let's find out. What weaknesses on thrash metal? I mean, speed causes errors. And I already kind of mentioned some of their proclivities when they're not playing music. These guys, they tend to reach for stimulants. And that can maybe throw them off a little bit. So every strength is a weakness and vice versa. Even though I'm in one breath telling you that speed causes errors, it's also their greatest weakness. Even though speed can cause errors, it also can be used to just crush the enemy into oblivion because they are so fast-paced. They're very tuned into geopolitical war games. They've got, and this is something thrash metal has always done, as a fighting force, as a genre, they are tuned in to what's going on at the elite level. Who's pulling the strings? Who's running society? Okay, so great. These Druids of Doom are pitting us against each other, but who's pulling the Druid strings? Thrash metal knows. Thrash metal knows, and that's one of their greatest strengths. They're so plugged into what's going on.
Absolutely.
I think something that's terrifying about their ace in the hole. If annihilation is ever imminent, they coalesce their forces and they can bring about the symphony of destruction. Thrash metal has been waiting 30 years for this. They've been set aside and put aside at times. And I think that this is the sort of genre that has an inherent bone to pick with the rest of heavy metal in general. I don't give a fuck about speed causing errors. I like this fighting force. But they're up against hair metal, Franny. What do we need to know? These guys backed into the Rift Bowl. They weren't supposed to be here. No one thought they would be, but now they're here. And they seem to have taken it seriously. What do you have to say? What do we know? What can we predict?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, just to kind of touch on thrash metal here real quick. I 100% agree that speed causes errors, but it also can be a huge boon. And these guys do have a proclivity to stimulate, to get that speed going even faster, and even faster. I view these guys as the storm/shock troopers of the metal scene. They hit hard and fast with their lightly armored attack choppers. They're going to try to completely overwhelm the hair metal faction with unbewildered speed and aggression. Now, on the hair metal side of things, they were trying to sneak into a nightclub. They chose the wrong back door, and that's how they ended up here. And they, like you said, they're decided to take it a little bit serious. So some of the strengths that they got through their very sometimes feminine look, they can entice the enemy through seduction with their voluptuous figures and their huge poofy hair, right? That's also, I feel like, one of their strengths. They bring the heat. Literally. If they don't do it with the pyro they have on stage, they always got a bandolier full of hairspray and a lighter, either for freebasing heroin or to smoke some cigarettes while they're sucking down Jack Daniels. They bring the heat. They got a lot of disorienting clothing, a lot of leopard prints and stripes. Maybe they'll get lucky and find themselves camouflaged.
I think they bring the peacock effect. They distract you. They disorient you. They're doing like a treasure bird sort of dance, and before you know it, you're just assaulted with these bright colors, these loud sounds, probably some thick smells of perfume.
Yeah,
and before you know it, I mean, can they withstand this on the thrash metal side? Are they impervious to these attacks?
In my opinion, this 1 versus 4 seed is another complete fucking demolition. There is no chance in hell. If hell frozen over twice, there's still no chance that the hair metal faction has any chance. Not a single chance do they have.
I'm going to tell you about a chance. I think you're thinking about this battle all wrong there, Franny. First of all, hair metal. Let's talk about when both these genres took prominence as fighting forces and as musical styles. We're talking the 1980s, brother.
Yep.
I mean, this is a big fucking party for the most time. And thrash metal is known to just throw down. If you go back to any of like the Megadeth early recordings or Metallica, Alcoholica, I mean, these guys were all down to party. And I think there was a lot of intermingling between these two forces. I think there's a chance that this could be a matchup nightmare, but not for the reasons you're thinking. I think hair metal will show up to this battle, have a fucking great ass time, and before you know it, the thrash metal guys are going to be like, I don't want to kill these guys. I want to party with these guys. I think they're going to get lured over there, and before they know it, they're going to be in a stupor from all the substances they've imbibed, all the distractions that they've noted. I mean, they're going to... Hair metal also can send in some substantial distractions to get under the skin of thrash.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, man. I don't know if this is a bloodbath.
Man, I think I gotta politely disagree with you, man. Like, yeah, they're gonna want to party with them, but then it's gonna take one hair metal guy to mess around with one thrash metal dude's girl, and it's game over at that point. It's game over at that point. They will be so boozed up and blinded by rage and speed and aggression. It's gonna, like I said, I just think it's gonna be a bloodbath. Even if there's a brief moment of partying, I think it still ends up in a bloodbath, because you know damn well that one of those hair metal guys is going to try to make a move on a girl or boy that they shouldn't have made a move on. And at that point, it's game over. Game over. Game over.
Well, it seems as though the Druids are at an impasse, but I think this situation leaves us no choice but to both fight. Both forces want to come out on top. They both need to lean into their most powerful weapon. And we already know on one side, thrash has got the Symphony of Destruction. And I mean, when you got a song that's predicated on the destruction of mankind, hard to beat. But on the other side, I mean, hair metal, they got the old Twisted Fister. And that sounds very unpleasant. that just doesn't sound like anything I want to spend a Friday night doing. I mean, the twist is just the part that takes it too far. So I would say, I don't know, Franny, if anything can decide this battle, I think it's the Ultimas. Symphony of Destruction over Twisted Fister. What do you say?
I completely agree with that. There is no stopping the Symphony of Destruction. As you said, the song predicated on the destruction of mankind and the world itself. There's no stopping it. No matter how hard you twist the fist, there's just no stopping it. How
much torque would that twist need to be effective? That, I don't even, maybe a Mac ton truck worth of twist is what I need. I need some hydraulic torque behind that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, well, that settles that settles a double O division. Black metal coming out on top of Doom. We got in a contentious and close fought, bitter battle. Hair metal is going to have to go back to partying and writing songs that a thrash band could only dream of selling as many copies of, because thrash has come out on top. We've got that division squared away. So I think we should turn our attention to the other side of the Rift Bowl Invitational, back to the Ronnie James Dio division, and find out who's holy diving and who is far from thriving. Who ain't surviving? Who's holy diving and who be surviving? That's what we're going to find out in the Ronnie James Dio division right now. What do we have here? We've got power versus death.
And this is the matchup of the century in my opinion. This is the epitome of light versus dark, good versus evil in my mind's eye. This is the battle for the soul of metal, one might even say. On one side, we have the number 2 power metal. Now these guys, they are heavily armored. They're clad in shiny ass, highly polished suits of steel. They're riding in on horseback with their dragons flying around the air for air superiority. Masters of fantasy, and like I said, heavily rely on the use of their dragons. Some of the strengths, as I was mentioned, they got fucking dragons, okay? It's hard to beat a fucking dragon, but they also have armor, and they also have honor. They fight with honor, they fight with dignity. They will do the right thing in battle, but that is also a weakness. With honor, on the flip side of that coin, it's easy to get tricked. It's easy to get duped. Because you have such a high moral standing, you might not see the low road taken by the other side, which I think will be a strength for death metal. Some of the things that they'll have, they're going to have swords, they're going to have bows, they're going to have lances, fucking dragons. I have to keep hammering that home because it's so important. And they bring the metal force, as in my opinion, that's the summation of power metal and their forces at large.
Well, I mean, dragons they're formidable, and I mean, if you're HBO, you're probably trying to fucking create a mint around the fact that they existed in people's minds, and power metal has been doing that for 20 years, but they're up against something that they've never seen firsthand. They've always tried to avoid with their fucking power stones and their little tables with knights inserting their swords into a circle. I mean, they're up against the only truth of life, which is death. So death metal, let's just acknowledge the elephant in the room. These guys have poor cardio. All right, death metal's got poor cardio. They're not going to be able to go toe-to-toe with you for 45 minutes. They want to have a knife fight in a phone booth. They want to draw you in close, because if you're in close range, that's where they use their formidable size to just pummel you with brute force, blunt objects. In terms of, their general weapons of choice, I mean, I'm thinking crude, close combat weapons. They're experts in the ancient hammer smash face technique. They always want to be near the reek of putrefaction, so they have no problem diving into the field of battle. Now, even though they're not religious zealots, they've been obsessed with death since they became a fighting force. This is the air that they breathe. That being said, they got 1,000 ways to die, and I can't really imagine a world where, even with dragons, death metal is going to be quaking in their boots. Because, okay, you want to set us on fire? Well, we love immolation. Do it. You know what I mean? You want to poke me with your little swords? Well, I got 200 stab wounds and I don't give a shit. 'Tis the season to have legions, as our mighty undeath say. And I wonder, even with dragons, even with knights, even with chivalry, does it fucking matter when you're up against these guys who, even if none of them are under 20% body fat, they're just hulking, and overall, I would say they're probably very intimidating. You think of like a corpse grinder. The size of dude's neck is probably about the same as any dragon you got. So
you gotta respect the neck, man. You gotta respect the neck.
You talk about weapons. I mentioned the blunt force trauma sort of weapons. I imagine there's probably some bolt throwers. I imagine there's probably some cleavers. But I also wonder if mixed in every once in a while, if maybe they've got like a mech warrior, like a dismember built, bolt thrower approved mech warrior that can just take a little shot from distance at one of these little flying lizards and see what goes down. I mean, I don't know. What if these dragons are like that little venom spitting dinosaur at the end of Jurassic Park? I mean, what if through years of poor bloodlines and haphazard breeding, Power Metal's all talking about these fantastical beasts, and you pull behind the curtain and you find that there's nothing fancy there. It's just a tiny little glorified iguana. I don't know.
Glorified iguana with little fairy wings.
Exactly. These things are sputtering off the ground like turkeys. Can't even get airborne.
All right. Let's break down the Ultimas here, because I think this is where potentially the tides get shifted. In the Power Metal side, we have the ability to summon the Blind Guardian. When their back's against the wall and their knights are feeling the heat the Death Metal Brigade brings, they will all take a knee, say the holy words, and out through the god rays from the sky slams into the ground the mighty Blind Guardian.
I mean, his blind is in his title. I don't care what you say. He's a fucking blind guardian. He's not going to do shit. He might swing. He's okay. Here's what blind guardian's going to do. You summon him from the sky. And as long as you don't go within a 10-foot radius to get walloped by his cane, which he's just flailing around and seeing what the blind guardian ain't shit. All right. Cause on the other side, I don't even think Death Metal needs an Ultima. I think Death Metal is already coming out on top. All this is to me right now is about how effective can the Power Metal Legion use their dragons. That's what I think we need to answer. How good are they? How good are they at riding, and what do these dragons do?
All right. Well, I'm kind of picking up what you're putting down here. Is it safe to say that you think that Death Metal comes out on top?
I mean, I just can't imagine a world where, like, Corpse Grinder, you're sending a Blind Guardian against him, he's going to headbutt the shit out of him. It doesn't matter. This dude, I don't know, does the Blind Guardian have a helper dog? Because if he doesn't, I just don't see a way that this isn't going to make a difference. And as far as these dragons go, everyone keeps talking about them, but I haven't seen one. No one's had a fairy tale about one for going on 700 years. Do they exist? Is this a psyops operation by prog metal to make us think dragons are real? I feel like Power Metal, Flat Earth Legion. That's who they are. They're talking about shit that's not real.
Well, I got some news for you here, there, Neckwrecker. Plot twist: I think Death Metal comes out on top too. I really do. I knew you probably thought that I was going to choose Power Metal. And don't get me wrong, I love me some Power Metal. But in a fighting match, I don't think that Power Metal can withstand the absolute violence, the bloodlust that Death Metal brings. Yes, they have dragons. Yes, they fight with honor. But Death Metal doesn't give a fuck about honor. They don't have morals. They want to chop you in half with their head splattered 7 different ways, and then you're going to get kicked in the protruding guts. All I have to say is do not fuck with the Death Metal Battalion, because it ain't going to be good. It is not going to be good. I think it's going to be an epic bloodbath that Death Metal comes out on top with.
In the midst of life, we are in death. And
Absolutely.
Power Metal fucked around and found out.
Absolutely.
I think it all is not lost for them. This is their whole thing. Okay, you're defeated. Death Metal's coming on top, but hey, Power Metal, think about all the myths you're going to get to write about a hero will rise to avenge you. I mean, I would just give you some advice as you part ways with the Rift Bowl Invitational is think about your Ultima. If it's Gandalf with the vision problem, if it's Gandalf who needs to go to lens crafters, it's not a recipe for success. So Blind Guardian, love ya as a fighting force. You're paltry. Well, Franny, that decides our first round, and it was bloody. Limbs were lost, minds were lost, dragons were never really even seen. And at the end of the day, first round of the Rift Bowl Ice Smash Invitational has been settled. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Prog Metal is looking very strong, heading into a huge Final Four matchup with Black Metal. On the other side of our bracket, we've got Thrash versus Death. I mean, my heart's palpitating. I know that people need to heal. Wounds need to get dressed. Some social services need to be called because the horrors of war are real, even if you're a metalhead. And
Absolutely.
young druid, stay tuned because we're going to revisit this when round 2 concludes the first annual, semi-annual Rift Bowl Ice Smash Invitational.
Hell yeah, and it'll be a doozy because these matchups that we got lined up are fucking insane. And it's gonna be real fun to talk about. And
Big Trouble in Little China kind of shit. That's all I know.
Oh boy. Well, Wrecker, I think it's time to kind of round out the episodes here and kind of talk about like what we've been listening to. Let's let the Droomies, the Acolytes, and the Neophytes let them into our metal world and just kind of tell them what we've been listening to. Why don't you kick us off there, homeboy?
Yeah. Well, before I even step into my first review, let's just first take a moment to acknowledge that death ain't nothing but a heartbeat away.
Mm-hmm.
And the Druids of Doom are gonna, for a moment, take off our tunics, put on our high tops, and be the Druids of Boom, and just briefly acknowledge Coolio, his passing. I mean, Gangster's Paradise, that shit was fire as fuck in the 90s, and I feel like Gangster's Paradise in particular, that shit has become like fucking, fucking white people. It's become like a Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, everyone can sing it. That song, I just feel like nothing was bigger in like 1995, whenever that was. And he had other hits too, but Coolio, man, passing away, unexpected. And he's the kind of artist where I feel like, even if we're metalheads, I still got to give a shout out to the dude. So rest in power, Coolio.
Absolutely. You got to take a knee for that guy. I mean, like you said, Gangster's Paradise, man, I know every word to that song because it's so damn good. And yeah, he's had some other hits and stuff like that, but yeah, it was unexpected, didn't see it coming, and the hip hop community has definitely lost an
important artist, seminal act.
There you go. The hip hop community has definitely lost a very important artist that kind of helped solidify it as a prominent genre in music today.
Well, I mean, you're giving him love, even I won't. I feel like he probably wasn't the best rapper ever, but he put out just like one of the biggest songs of all time. He was a cultural phenomenon, and you write a song that huge, you don't have to write a bunch of other hit songs. Was he Biggie Smalls? No, but fuck, he was still fun as hell, and goddamn, Michelle Pfeiffer took him seriously. He stepped in, she flipped that chair around, she was paying attention, and I wonder how Weird Al feels, because he kind of gave Weird Al one of his biggest hits with Amish Paradise.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so Coolio, rest in peace, dog. Let's talk about a record I've been listening to almost incessantly since I first picked it up. This is another $20 spin artist.
Man, you have just been on a tear with this album or this label.
The $20 spin show, man. I'm trying to. I just can't quit you. $20 spin. You just, they just know we got rhythm and we got history, me and $20. And the band is Tzompantli people. And I'm going to do my best to get through this language and be honorable and respectful, but just know, I don't have like a Nahuatl language consultant. And a lot of the language they use is Nahuatl, which is like this ancient, central Mexican, Central American language that were spoke by the Aztecs, and it's still spoken by like 2 million people.
Wow.
So Tzompantli, they're out of Pomona, California, California, and I love these dudes' names. I mean, they just seem like they can go hard and have a good time and maybe take care of some business if they need to. But you got G-Bone on bass, you got Errol Ulig on drums, and you got Huey Big O on vocals. Actually, Huey, it's Tekawanatl. Big O on vocals. And when you see this dude's picture, he looks like he could put in work, just like with the sort of intimidation factory shooting out at you. So, but beyond just being like kind of a formidable and physical presence, Big O is he's a dynamic dude. So he's taking care of vocals, guitar, bass, didgeridoo. Dude does animal flute, shells, and drum programming. And oh, by the way, peace and love, he is the guitarist for Zabulba, a band I know that you have been very high on.
Oh boy, yeah. The first time I heard Zabulba was like revelation. It really was. I never felt so powerful when compared to the first time I listened to Xibalba. Like it blew my mind, and I could just feel the energy, the ancient Aztec power like flowing through me when I listened to them.
Well, I think before I go even into describing what their sound is like, even though I've tipped my cards to you already just by letting you know they're a $20 spin band, but there's a statement I saw this reading about the band, doing a little research, where Big O has said that Tzompantli's music is dedicated and is an offering to indigenous peoples, nations, and tribes of the north, south, east, and west of the American continent. So that's very cool to hear a band paying homage to all frankly proud indigenous people. And oh, by the way, these people have been in the Americas since time immemorial. So Tzompantli's making music to honor all of these indigenous peoples. So I think that's really rad. I've always been down to hear bands that mix in tribal sounds with their craft, whether that's South American or North American. I think about, a band like Sepultura is one that always comes to mind, who is so cool the way they were able to mix like tribal beats and heavy metal and create this sound all their own. So Tzompantli, they don't sound like Sepultura. This band is very much like in the vein of this slow, grimy, groovy cavernous death metal that I've been listening a lot to lately. You could think of bands like a Vectral Spore, or Spectral Void. Oh boy. Spectral Void, Blood Incantation probably. I would think of someone like Hooded Menace, Coffins even, but a cavernous death metal sound. And there's nothing that stands out very much on the death doom side. It's just very well executed. That's not what makes this special. What makes this album special, which is Las Called Leetzli, is the name of the album. Las Called Leetzli. Hope I'm got that right. Boy, am I. I had to really try to practice some of these. So boys, if you're here, Big O, don't send a guy to my place. I'm trying to be respectful. I love what you're doing. But it's got a lot of tribal elements. Like, as I mentioned, the didgeridoo and the flutes and the shells, the tribal drums. The death metal here is it's not something you haven't heard before, but this integration of all these tribal instrumentation, all these tribal elements, that does feel really fresh. It does feel really different. You're going to hear chanting vocals and you're going to have acoustic passages. You're going to feel like you're being pulled into like a drum circle or a ceremony that, maybe is unseen for thousands of years, but you're just getting a close look at from afar, and you're floored. You're in awe of what you're seeing. When I listen to this album, I feel like I'm hearing ancestors, not necessarily my own, but just ancestors. It's got like a weight and an oldness to the sound. And that's all by virtue of what, Big O and company have been able to do with this really cool amalgamation of tribal influence and death doom. So let's talk about Tzompantli's name. This is wild. I had to look it up. What does Tzompantli mean? It's a skull rack. So
wow.
That's just so appropriately named. I felt like by the time I had gotten done listening to this, I felt like my entire fucking head had been separated from my body, and I wasn't even upset. I feel like I was fortunate to listen to these guys and find out about them, and for $20 spin to be giving an opportunity to so many young death metal bands that are doing so many creative things just speaks volumes for the overall health of death metal. I don't know if we're going to see these guys come through anytime soon, because I know Xibalba is like a name that's coming up hard right now. So I think we're probably more likely to see a tour, at least in Minnesota, from Xibalba. But if Tzompantli comes through, I'm not going to miss them. I would give this a 7 out of 10 missing heads. Totally Neckwrecker approved. Check them out.
Hell yeah. Tzompantli. I'm going to have to definitely check that out, especially if it's got the guy from Xibalba, because I gushed over them a little bit already, and I want my fingers in all of those different pies, as it were.
Well, if you do get a chance, oh, young Druid or Franny, like when you listen to them, even if you just have a moment, if you've got time just for one song, check out the 4th track, Etiquette. Etiquette is like, for me, the best example of that marriage that I talked about in the full review. So Yeah, let me know what you think of Tzompantli when you get a chance, and I'm looking forward to hearing about what you're listening to. What do you got going on?
Oh, my brother. My brother. Well, I could talk about how I was completely floored by Morbicon's new single that just came out. 2-track single, super group formed by a few guys from a lot of prominent death metal bands. I believe some thrash metal in there as well, if I'm not mistaken. It's Vreth, Dave White, and Landfill Hall all joined forces, and I was completely floored by the black and
Oh,
thrash metal that came out with these
is this the
guys.
Fintroll had a baby with Municipal Waste Band?
Yes. So
Okay,
this
okay.
is the black and thrash metal band, aka what I'm trying to coin here is bash metal. Completely trucked me. I could also talk about the Melodeath outfit from Tennessee, Epoch of Unlight. I just stumbled upon these guys looking through, some, curated playlists or whatever, and their album, At War with the Multiverse, also just completely entranced me, was enticed from cover to cover. Check it out. But, I've been on a deep dive into the history, the birth of tech death. And I want to go down this path once again, and pay homage and respect to probably one of the most iconic bands from Florida, Death. And the album in
Oh,
question is the 1991 release Human.
oh my God. Oh,
This album I've heard before, and I never really connected the dots until I started going down this tech death journey. I never really connected the dots. But this is an incredibly important album and band to the tech death genre in my
the death metal
personal
genre. I mean, just the
or
death metal
yeah,
genre proper. I mean, this is seminal.
absolutely both death metal but also tech death. It's the incredibly important band. The insane pace and like almost constant technical tempo changes, it just keeps you guessing and trying to figure out what the fuck is going to happen next, where each song is going to go. It demands to be in the discussion of where tech met death. It really does. It's not more clear in the track of Secret Face.
Secret Face.
It goes so fucking hard, and the solos are so fucking insane and just completely face melting. And then on the flip side of that, you have tracks like Cosmic Sea, like really slow it down to kind of give you a breather before it just like smashes your face again.
The thing I love about Death and that album, by the way, that is definitely my favorite Death album. You couldn't be cutting your teeth on a better, important death metal record. But I love that Chuck Schuldiner, mastermind of Death. I mean, you're not tuning into the Druids of Doom for me to tell you that death metal it owes everything, well, not a lot, to Chuck Schuldiner and Death. But the thing I love, why you're exploring this, you talk about the birth of technical death metal. I feel like Chuck Schuldiner has these death songs have this tendency to like introduce a melody and then spend like the next 4 or 5 minutes going through a crazy journey, on a meandering journey. Like, to your point, you don't know where it's going to go, but by the end of it, they have like the cyclical way to go back to some sort of initial melody, and it feels so technical and classical.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. It like you said before, this is a seminal album in the death metal genre, and like I said, the slower bits are completely and abruptly they transition into like blistering and neck wrecking speeds, and the complexity for some of these tracks and the way that they bring it back like full circle, like you said, cyclical, they bring it back. It's insane. It really is insane. This album is not only a masterpiece in its own right, but it's in my opinion and my summation, a very unprofessional opinion, BT dubs, is one of the true roots of tech death. It really is. Chuck was gone way before his time, but like him, the band were way ahead of their time, in my opinion.
Oh, no question about it. They were one step ahead of the game at every turn in their career. They set the precedent for what other bands started to do. And one of the things I cherish so much about Death as a band is every album adds its own new evolution to the Death sound. Death is not a band that ever made the same album twice. And as
Absolutely
a
not.
dyed-in-the-wool death metal maniac, I'm a fanatic for death metal. Let it not be ever said that this genre lacked for a band that changed paths. Death changed paths a lot. You listen to Scream Bloody Gore and compare that to later album work, they sound completely different. Like Symbolic sounds nothing like Scream Bloody Death. And now they both crush, but every album is its own distinct sort of thing. And man, you just have fantastic taste over there. This is for sure my favorite Death album. I feel like Lack of Comprehension's also a track on this, but Secret Face is instant iconic. Death metal royalty type of stuff. And so, I mean, bottom line, what I'm picking up is you loved this record.
Oh, all 5 Franny packs that I have are stuffed to the brim because of this album. It is one of my favorite listening experiences I have ever got to enjoy. I listened to this in the weeks leading up to this. I listened to it at least twice a week. And not just this album, but like other albums as well. But I love Death, the band. I love death metal genre, but I love Death, the band. Definitely. And it all started with that Leprosy album you gave me a while back, man. Like that.
I knew I was like, I was sending I felt like I was sending you home with, I was planting a major seed. I'm like, I know, based on your taste, this is waiting for you. And when you're ready,
oh man,
you're going to be a death metal head. And yeah, you can't, you couldn't choose a better record, dude.
No, and it completely changed my my outlook on like my taste of music. To be honest with you, like it was revelatory. Let's just put it that way. The first time
Franny
heard
had a
Death.
watershed moment, and the Franny packs runneth over. Wow, what at some point we're gonna have to dissect for the listener what a Franny pack is. Is it a juice box? Is it a side? Is it an extremely versatile, strappable purse that I need to have in my life? We don't know, but at some point we're going to break down the function and the form of Franny packs. Well, Franny, if you don't mind, first of all, I could listen to you talk about Death all day because I feel like you're taking me back to my own journey. You're taking the acolytes along with you for their journey, and that's the kind of druidic knowledge that this show is built on. But I'd like to talk to you about a band called Hellfire. Now, Hellfire, I am just I think to make the show maybe more unpredictable, I should maybe occasionally share just a bad review. I don't like to do that, honestly, and I'm going to gush over this band and this album just like I did Tzompantli. But Hellfire, hailing from San Francisco, firmly heavy metal with doses of thrash and speed. This is the kind of band that if you are at all into the metallic sound is going to instantly pull you in. And I know I've built this show so far around the idea of like these banger after banger albums. In time, probably as the weather changes, you can expect both of us to probably go into more nuanced, textured, atmospheric music. But for right now, as I watch the dying rays of warmth and sun leave the northern hemisphere, I'm just grasping for these last banger albums. And I think I found one. So I first came across Hellfire with the album Mania. And Mania, it grabbed me, but it didn't stick around on my palate for long. It did everything right. The vocals are phenomenal in everything they've done. I want to give a special mention to Jake Nunn on vocals. You also got Tony Campos on guitars, Mike Smith on drums, and Cobra Kai Son on bass. But Jake Nunn in particular, this guy, if you like vocals with grit, but that are also still clean, he is your boy. I'm thinking like I would place him in the same vein as Russell Allen from Symphony X, or Harry Conklin of Satan's Host, or Jake Panzer if you really want to go back in the day here, Jake Panzer, boy oh boy. But what makes The Reckoning by Hellfire so successful for me, for the Wrecker of Necks, is two things. It's the crushing riffs and the gritty, perfectly executed epitome of heavy metal vocals by Jake Nunn. When you listen to this record, you're really just going to get a lot of high-octane tracks. There's a lot of speed, but, and this is what I do need for a band to really be successful for me, is they slow things down just enough to keep the urgency interesting. They're not going to just numb you out. So every song is distinct. There are some tempo changes, but as you listen to it, you're going to clearly hear both thrash and like new wave of traditional heavy metal. I'm talking bands like Saxon or Iron Maiden. You're going to hear galloping fucking melodies. You're going to hear soaring vocal runs that just feel like you need to drink a honey tea out of sympathy for dude because he's just wailing. I don't know if this singing style is sustainable, but I hope to God it is, because there's really heavy metal right now is lacking in vocalists that can do this. The vocalists that can sing clean sound like someone is stepping on their balls in the right sort of way. We like some ball stepping here at the Druids of Doom. We welcome fetishists into heavy metal. If you got to get your ball stomped to sound like this, Jake Nunn, keep it up, bro, because I don't want to be hyperbolic. For my money, he's top 10 current vocalists in heavy metal right now, and people need to know. The Reckoning is their 4th album. They're very much hitting their stride right now, and it coincides. They're touring. I cannot wait, young droomies, because in about 2 days, I'm going to see them live. So in a show soon, I should be able to tell you about how songs like Medieval Cowboys or Addicted to Violence go over in a live setting. So, Reckoning, to give you just a final summation, it's an absolutely anthemic album. It's full of crushing songs and touches on all of the musical tropes in a good way of classic heavy metal. I think I'm going to be reaching for this one a lot. And if they stay the course with this kind of album, I think they're going to be doing a lot of headlining tours. I think they're going to be doing a lot of tours in Europe. I think these boys are going to go into a part of the stratosphere that they deserve to be in. For me, this is a 9 out of 10 pinched nerves. The Reckoning, Hellfire.
Whoo, doggy. God damn. Oh, man. You told me that you were going to see these guys in a couple days, and I did check out some of their work, and Medieval Cowboys, I heard that track, and man, oh man, dude, that I was super jacked for you to go see this show, and I'm also once again very upset that I can't make it because I am a huge fan and was drooling over this band. Definitely liked it, everything that they're putting out, and I agree with you that it kind of gives you like that classic heavy metal vibe to it.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I'm 100% here for it.
Saxon would be proud. Metallica would be proud. Merciful Fate would be proud. Iced Earth would be proud. These
Absolutely.
guys, it's in another. I don't even want to sound like I've got the wrong tone here. It's not in another time. It deserves to happen in this time, and I believe it will happen in time. That these boys just go straight to the top of heavy metal. You're hearing it here first. If you haven't taken notice of Hellfire, do so now, because frankly, heavy metal doesn't have enough of these sorts of bands. Yeah, so I'm always going to put a shine on a band like this, and we'll have some great coverage in an episode to come. So, Franny, that's really what I've been listening to a lot of lately. I've also just got a couple things percolating with Mortiferum's got a new album. I want to talk about that in the show to come. Additionally, Tribulation has been really dominating the airwaves over at the old Neckwrecker abode. You got anything else you want to share with our listening audience on what you've been listening to, or are we approaching a wrap up?
I think we're pretty good to wrap it up here. Like I said, I wanted to just give respect to death in my album review, and I think we're in a good spot to wrap it up there today.
Well, then I'll just close before I pass the baton to you by saying, tune in for the next episode. It's going to be live coverage of a lot of hot shows, and in an episode to come, we are going to conclude the dynamic, bloodthirsty, fucking sinew-ripping, arm-slashing conclusion to the Rift Bowl Eye Smash Invitational. But we have a lot of strong feelings over here about who could come out on top. Only one way for you to find out is to tune in. Thank you, Droomies. Thank you, Degenerates, Acolytes, and Druids.
All right, and like you said, make sure you stick around so you can find out the gripping conclusion and see who comes out on top. With that said, make sure you check us out on our social medias. We got an Instagram, we got Twitter, we're streaming everywhere now. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeart, Amazon, you name it, we are there, baby. And Make sure you stick around, subscribe, follow us wherever you can. Spread the word. Spread the word. Let's get some more acolytes and neophytes and roomies into the Order of the Black Cloth. And with that, make sure you stick around for the next episode of Druids of